Hello, everybody. Oof. Oof. All right, why, Brian? Why got that oof going on there?
Oof. It's jam. I don't know what I was doing on that. I liked it.
Just a little eerie kind of thing. Blake said trap. I don't really know if it was like trap, but it was kind of just like an easy kind of just going beat. That's all I had.
Pretty intense.
Well,
for the record, the crowd requested country, and Kenny could not deliver.
I have no Next country time. In my repertoire. You have to go and make these videos, which, as anybody that's been paying attention, I don't think we've updated them at least a year now, and that would require me to go through and make new videos and all this other kind of stuff. So we're doing what we always do. List. Well, yeah, it's not there, but I will be more than happy if somebody wants to make us do intro videos, and you give us royalty-free music to put it behind. Let's do it.
Eric, can't you play the guitar?
No.
Okay.
You play the saxophone.
There you go.
I like that.
I knew you played something. I knew you played something.
Kenny G intro.
Yeah, some of you might know, but the way Jordan, me, and Nick met each other was by playing the saxophone. So all three of us could come.
And all three of you play the saxophone? Now that's a trio I'd like to see there. I mean,
absolutely on tour.
You might want to see it, but you're not going to want to hear it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Put on noise canceling headphones for it. But
did y'all realize you suck so bad? And you're like, let's just go ahead and start doing bourbon.
Let's drink.
Yeah, pretty much. I cut out first. They kept going. They didn't know better.
All right, I got another question for you. Is there such a thing as like country sax? Like, are people starting to introduce a saxophone into country music?
There is some saxophone in some of the '90s songs. I think.
I was gonna say, like, not anything newer.
Man, I can't even think any
like
90s.
Violin jumping.
Saxophone was everywhere in the 80s.
I think Marty Stewart had some saxophone in his music.
I feel like Googling that.
Yeah, that's a Google-worthy topic. Yeah.
If we could, let's take the next 30 to 40 minutes and just debate the use of a saxophone in a country song. I think, as if these questions weren't going to take long enough. I feel like Kenny was putting me on the spot with all of them tonight. So let's talk saxophone.
Matt Carter says Whiskey Myers uses a sax.
Yeah.
I can't fact check one. I can't fact check that.
Really? They'll have a trio in there. I actually did a lot of research on this when I was with Dash Radio. I did like these little segments.
Of course you did.
but I didn't do anything on country. It was all like the 80s and 90s and a lot of Hall & Oates.
Well, I like Hall & Oates.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's a 90s band in Lexington called Mojo Filter Kings, and they threw the sax down.
That's a nice
It was great.
name.
I mean,
that
Mojo Filter Kings.
A good sax line, it's a pretty good, like, just kind of like thing to have inside of a song. Especially, I mean, it's just a good dance vibe, to be honest with you.
It's a strong sound.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Shout out to my sax players out there.
Bill Clinton, right?
Yeah. Me and my boy Bill.
And
Marge, Breaking Bourbon.
Not Marge Simpson, but the Maggie, whatever Bart's sister's name is.
Yeah,
Lisa.
You're right.
Lisa.
Lisa. Yeah, you're
Lisa,
right.
yeah.
There you go. Sean said Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. I don't think that's country. Last I checked, that's like ska, right?
That's like one.
I thought you were going to say they didn't have a sax. I'm like, that was kind of their whole thing, wasn't it?
Right on. Well, by the way, last time we had a roundtable, I think I caught a bunch of crap because they were like, Kenny, can you not afford stuff in your background? As you can see, the guest bedroom is finally coming together over here. So the kids' playroom has been decommissioned, but I believe this might be the last time with me doing this here. I might just start doing the roundtables at our distillery from now on. So
do it.
Oh, wow.
Gonna be getting rid of
See how that goes.
Yeah. What, trying to get home?
It's gonna say invest in a bicycle and
I got a scooter. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
I'm just kidding. All right, well, let's go ahead and let's get into it. We got a good topic or two that we'll talk about tonight. I'm looking forward to this. I hope you all poured something good for yourself that's not from the Big Six. Ready? All right, well, let's get it going. As guys, fellas, as usual, just make sure you keep yourselves on mute, everything like that. Folks, please put yourself questions in the chat. We will get to them. If you have a really good comment, a really funny one, we'll also be sure to put it on the screen or talk about it, or just take a hard left turn and answer your question as we go through there as well. All right, here we go. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of Bourbon. It is Kenny, Ryan, and Fred here tonight. Fellas, say hello.
What is up?
Hello, friends.
You like saying that hello, friends.
I know, Jim Nance.
You put it in the chat earlier. You just giving off the like the nice guy vibes. Is that what it is?
You know, it's Jim Nance when he does the Masters or whatever. I want him to do my eulogy. So I don't know. I like the hello, friends.
We can do that. Well, hello, Ryan. Hello, Fred. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good
But
to
of
see you.
Be here.
course, this is the Bourbon Community Roundtable, and we're joined, as always, by our good friends. And I'll just go ahead and we'll just do it one by one. So, Blake, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick. We'll try one more time. Blake, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
I'm Blake from Bourboner and Sealbox, and just continuing the streak. I feel like I haven't plugged the streak in the last few episodes, but just so if you're listening for the first time, this is Community Roundtable number 87, and that makes number 87 in a row for myself. Planes, trains, or Disney World parks. I try to jump on the roundtable every time I can. Thanks for having me.
I feel like you deserve a lightning bolt patch or something as the most, I guess you can say storied guest that has been on this show before. I don't even consider you a guest. You're basically like almost we should get like maybe like 1.5% of whatever comes in at this point.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up while we're on air, so I'm glad you said it first. I was shooting for 2%, but I'll take 1.5 as No, always fun to be on, and yeah, always fun to just plug the streak in being on the roundtable. It's still one of the big things. I have people tell me they've heard of Sealbox from, so it's always cool to hear.
That's good to know, and it just keeps people guessing whether we're brothers or whether we're lost cousins or something like that too. That doesn't stop.
You never want to actually disclose it. Just keep the mystery out there, and it's like they do look suspiciously alike on camera, and then
And then somehow
It
our
works.
emails get crossed. And, I put a description out there because we're actually hiring for Pursuit Spirits. And the first email comes to you, and you're like, I'm pretty sure, just try to decipher
I'm
it.
sure you just posted about this on Facebook, and I got a resume. I tried to hire them, but they're like, no, I'm looking to work at a distillery in Kentucky. I'm like, no, this is for, hanging out in Jacksonville. So I don't think it's the same job.
Well, there'll be a lot of hanging out in Jacksonville apparently in the future. Isn't that, Ryan, aren't you heading down there soon?
Yeah, I'm waiting on my itinerary from Blake. Like, where am I going? What times?
There are some things I do well in life. Planning is not one of them, but yeah, just you show up, it all works out, and it's just like Louisville, but you're coming here instead, where the day ahead of time tell you where and when to be.
Literally, before I came on here, she's like, what restaurants are we going to? There's dress codes and this and that. Like, Blake needs to tell you where we're going. I'm like, I'll do the best I can.
Blake, you plan
Hold
just
on, I
like
gotta
I
plan
do. I
dinners
love
too.
it. I love it.
Exactly. It's exactly it. Man, this is way more pressure now with families involved. I feel like Tiffany's gonna really hate me if she shows up, and but we'll make it happen. I'm
We'll
gonna
make the best.
print it all out
It'll be a good time.
tonight. I'm gonna laminate it, send it to you. You'll be set.
I can't wait to see it. I think it's gonna be great. I'm really jealous of you all.
I'll document it the whole weekend.
Yeah, just lots of stories on the Instagram. You two just hanging out. Maybe you probably, if you get a Taylor Swift sighting, just kind of let me know, and it'd be just really amazing.
It'll be me outside the Jaguar Stadium waiting on Blake. Where is he? I thought we were going to the game.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the reason people watch NFL nowadays is to just catch a Taylor Swift sighting. So I would imagine I'm really rooting for you all.
Yeah, no Chiefs games here. So no Taylor Swift sighting.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Chiefs came pre-Taylor, so she was not in Jacksonville, unfortunately.
Just hold out hope. You have no idea.
Although I think I just set a record for the longest intro in Bourbon Community Roundtable history, so I'm going to pass the mic off.
Yeah, that's a good call. So Brian, go next. We'll see if
Yeah.
we can beat Blake.
We'll see. Yeah, let's see how long we can go. Brian with Sipping Corn, Bourbon Justice, all that. Happy to be on 87 and nowhere near Blake's streak, but I'm working on it. I can
You're
only
pretty
hope.
close though.
I've done a lot, but yeah, it's just untouchable when it's 100%.
You're at least a solid 85.
Solid
my book.
85. Yeah, well, thank you.
In regards to
And-
lawyers, you're my favorite.
And I make a lot of the roundtables too, right?
Yes, that one too.
Yeah.
And Eric, who used to be the, I guess you could say the silent man behind Breaking Bourbon. Now he's coming out. He's what, you're like 4th, 5th appearance on this now?
Yeah, something like that. So we'll keep the intro, I guess, that short too. Because if you're here, for every episode, you can go long. You're here short. All right, I'll keep it short. I'm Eric from Breaking Bourbon, and that's it. We'll keep it short. Let's go to the topics.
I love this guy. Just no messing around. Let's get to it. So the first topic that I kind of looked at, and again, this kind of goes back into a overarching theme of how do we get into more of the mindset of the consumer. And I think this is probably the first one that we've probably talked about it at some point. And it really, the kind of first topic that I looked at was, is big bourbon just better? Now, when I talk about big bourbon, we talk about pretty much the major 6 distilleries that are around Kentucky. You got your Jim Beam, you got your Heaven Hill, you got your Campari. Let's go ahead, name the rest of all for me. We got Brown Foreman, we've got Sazerac, and who am I missing?
Four Roses.
Diageo.
Okay, maybe there's 7 in there. Either way, it seems that those particular distilleries seem to dominate every single topic of conversation, our news feeds, the reviews that we see on Facebook or on YouTube, just everything that we come to see inside of bourbon all kind of sits there and focuses around these 6, 7, I guess I said Diageo, so bullets in there, 6, 7 different types of major distilleries. Yet there's over 2,000 distilleries across the U.S. So what makes us just always gravitate to this core 6? Is it first just, well, their accessibility, or do they just have deep pockets? And so you get accessibility, you get stuff on the shelf, or is it B, is there just a bunch of money dumped in marketing and therefore it controls the mind share of wherever everybody's thinking? And then, by the way, also shout out to Eric and Adam Hyman. They also said, do you lump MGP into this? I think so. I think MGP might be worth lumping into this. So we'll say the big 7, big 8. I think that's probably worth, because really there's, like I said, 2,000 distilleries across the U.S. We talk about 8 of them 90 to 99% of the time. Why is that?
I'll jump in, and I mean, obviously, I'll qualify with I am biased because we push predominantly and almost exclusively smaller brands and distilleries on Sealbox, but I think it's a couple things. One is just the availability of all these products we're talking about. In general, they are on every shelf. If you go anywhere in the world, they're probably going to have Maker's Mark and Jim Beam there as the bourbon option. So I think that's a big part of it. Saying that they're better than everybody else, I can't get anywhere close to that, because I think there's just so much out there that's really good. But you've got a few things. You've got decades of a head start of marketing. You've got million plus budgets at every turn for a lot of these guys. So I think that plays a big role. And if we're looking at just the whiskey, I think it's a really even playing field. I think some of the craft guys and smaller brands and blenders are doing a much better job than the bigger guys, because if you look at the distilleries of like a Heaven Hill or a Jim Beam, there's just not much differentiation. It's very homogenized production method, even though they don't like to say that. So you're really just relying on blending. So I think they can't compete with the smaller brands for that. But as far as pushing distributors, pushing retailers, pushing bars, pushing retail stores, like there's just no way to compete with that for some of these smaller brands. So that's why I think it's always everywhere and what people just automatically go to. I think that's changing a bit, but I think it's just becoming a much more crowded space. And now everybody's fighting for their share of the pie.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point there that we should probably touch on a little bit is that what it takes to actually get on the shelf, stay on the shelf, and continue to keep that mind share is that it takes people that you have to staff in every single market. And even in places like Texas, I mean, you'll have people that you have like 5, maybe 10 different people for some of these large distilleries that just take care of the Texas market alone. And their job is to go into liquor stores, make them feel real good about themselves, schmooze them up, take them, whatever it is, kind of give them gifts or do whatever, make sure that the case stacks look really good and give away a bunch of free stuff. And for the most part, it's really hard for smaller brands to compete with that. And that's what it's like. I mean, we've talked about Finger Lakes, we talked about Wyoming whiskey, we talked about all these other great different distilleries that we all love, yet we all kind of get gobbled up by this engine that is just basically just funneling money into the marketing side of things that you really it's hard to compete with that because there's other companies that are sort of doing that pay to play sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, it's when you can get Elijah Craig for the same price countrywide, and it's solid, and I mean, you know what you're getting. I think that's really attracts a lot of consumers. So you just need some more education and experience on some of these smaller brands, and I think you'll find things that you like better than Elijah Craig, but they've all got these go-tos that you can get anywhere you want, and that's going to put everybody else at a disadvantage.
Ron, I feel like you have a lot of thoughts on this and you're being quiet.
Well, I'd like to give everybody else a chance, but I see Fred back there pondering where is he going to attack, give his spiel. But yeah, I mean, as we've learned, I mean, obviously there's a ton of things. They make great products at a great price, and you can't mess with that. They have history, which may be real or not real. They have a lot of stories about dead guys who may be true or may not true, but it's nostalgic. People like the old times. They feel like, oh, it's America's native spirit. Have this old Daniel Weller guy that we should rename a bottle over, and it's 12 years. Yeah, we should pay $500 over it because who knows? Daniel may have been a crackhead, back then. But we're gonna glorify this guy and just make up a story about it. But
You really think they had crackheads back then? Like,
well, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Who knows what Daniel was doing? But I hope they don't say that about me one day. But maybe
just shine heads. Maybe that's all they had back then.
But the big brands, I mean, it's taken them 100 years to get popular. Really, and it's been a lot of time and effort, a lot of hard times. There were good times, as Fred will tell you, pre-prohibition and then post-prohibition to the 60s, and they went some really hard times. And so I think it's probably deserved that they get it. The reason I think they're so popular is they went through that time of not having success, so they had products that they could let sit and age longer while they diversified and went to vodkas and rums, tequilas, and whatnot, Irish whiskeys, cordials. A lot of these brands are owned by bourbon's not just their focus. They have a lot of I guess God, what's the word I'm looking for? Diversification in their portfolio. But they just were in a position where they had nice age stock. They could produce it at a great price. And two, they own the distribution game. Like that's where everything in alcohol is all about distribution. It's like politics. The person that spends the most usually wins the elections. It happened here in Kentucky. Andy Bashir spent double the amount of what Cameron did and won. And then I'm not saying it's just, but that happens in a lot and it's no different in alcohol. A lot of the up and coming brands that have gone so popular is they've had to compete spending money distribution wise in liquor stores, doing case deals, incentives, kickbacks, this and that. That's the name of the game because you can not even if your product doesn't sell, you can kind of get if you're in this big group and you can get packaged with a portfolio of products, you're just going to be able to scatter your product out in the market better. And I think there's just this nostalgia with the those big seven brands that people really latch onto, and there's so many new drinkers that really don't understand labels and history and whatnot, and they don't care. And that's the unfortunate thing. They don't care. They just want to go with what everybody says is good, whatever TikToker is doing. This is drink 3 bottles of this instead of blends or whatever, and that's just the consumer mindset right now. And but they see, oh, well, you say, why shouldn't I drink blends? I'm going to go drink blends because everybody's going after it. So I don't know. There's a lot of things to it, but I think the biggest thing is they just I think it comes down to price and availability is the biggest thing in distribution.
Ryan, I'll throw something at you. And so this is, my wife was really into a lot of like the Netflix documentaries and movies recently about like Pfizer and pain control drugs and like all this other kind of stuff where there was a huge reform on what the drug companies can do and how they could incentivize doctors and how they could do all this other kind of stuff. Do you feel like we're at that stage where we should probably, I mean, granted, it's not a endemic where people are dying because of pain meds, but is it the point where it's like, okay, like maybe we should start limiting what these big brands, what they can offer to distributors, because it is an unfair practice to say that, you can't give, nice Patagonia jackets to every salesperson that have your logo on it because they sold a couple cases for you. Or you can't do whatever it is. You can't take them on these trips, or you can't give them dinners. You can't do whatever it is because it makes it unfair for the other mom and pops. I want to give a shout out to Sharp Top Distilling Company, who actually put on here that says they completely agree. They say that it's hard for us to push distributors without an insane budget, and that takes away their focus from actually creating the craft spirits that they want to for their consumers. Are we at the point where we need to start looking at reform and having some sort of government intervention that says, you know what, like it's unfair, like you're dominating the market because you have more money, and it's not fair for other players in this game, and you're not giving a fair a fair take at some other smaller players?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that I'm a free
Right.
market
I was
believer,
gonna say I don't
and
see Ryan going pro government.
Well, I mean,
Well,
I take this to the
Those
extreme,
laws
right?
are already there, though. Those laws are already there. I mean, it's very specific and particular once you get down to it about
Yeah.
what. So all like the pay to play stuff we're describing is actually illegal. Like there's laws against this. Now that's where I think everybody in the industry's heard the story about whatever rep comes to the bar, swipes the credit card for, $500 of drinks that is actually just a way to get on the menu or whatever it is. But these laws are in place, and I think it was the Biden administration probably year and a half, 2 years ago, came out with this whole thing of a study of the fairness of alcohol in the laws and everything behind it. And there have been some crackdowns. I know some of the distributors are fighting things in California and other places. So the laws are there. I think it's just it's so prevalent and so hard to really crack down on. It's still just a thing. It's kind of like we all somewhat joke about, hey, you got to buy a bunch of Fireball to get Pappy. Well, that's actually not a legal practice, but we see it play out every day, unfortunately.
So that's one thing. And by the way, I take it to the extreme of comparing this to like fentanyl, and I know it's not a crisis like that.
Jesus, Kenny.
Well, no, I mean that's the same thing. Like government had to step in because these companies were making so much money, and they're giving kickbacks to doctors to keep writing more prescriptions. So it's like, well, at what point is it any different to say like, well, we're gonna start edging everybody else out of the market because they have more money, so they can give more money to distributors who are going to go push their product even more.
Yeah, but I feel like
Basically
every
leaving everybody
business
else
is like
out.
that.
And like I said, it's not the extreme, but it does have some sort of correlation.
Yeah, but every business is that way. It's that's just the nature of the beast. It's all about relationships, and at the end of the day, people people want to romanticize this, and I was having this conversation with someone in the industry. We're all drinking a commodity. It's, it's corn liquor that's just been repackaged and, romanticized and whatnot. But, I mean, every business is like this. You can, there's the market is so competitive and whatnot. It's a relationship, monetary based back economy. And I mean, I just don't I mean, Costco, we had this discussion where, Total Wine in California, I think, was getting investigated because they were getting better deals than a mom and pop liquor store. And it is hard because, like, you have a similar product that can be much cheaper at a different store because they buy so much volume, but then a mom and pop can't compete. But then do the mom and pops, I guess, adapt and create better service, do better barrel picks, to compete. I don't know. It's just, I don't think
So
a
Hard thing too,
government
because if
oversight
I'm
is the
Total
answer.
Wine, yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm doing way more to support this brand. They should be, that's just economies of scale in any other industry. So it's a slippery slope, and I probably lean more with Ryan of like the less government oversight, the better, but it still can be an unfair advantage for the smaller guys for sure.
So I'll throw a curveball to everyone here, but it's not the pay to play thing is not as bad in bourbon as it is in rum. And in rum, our taxpayer money pays for Captain Morgan. Like, we actually nearly subsidized that distillery 100% with our taxpayer money in St. Croix. So they come to market and they're on third base in a liquor store with all the marketing power they have because they have no actual cost for making Captain Morgan. Very closely the same with Bacardi, who's paying the same taxes as when they, opened up in Puerto Rico many years ago, and they also get subsidized. So in some of the other spirits categories, there's a lot of subsidies being passed around. Now, this all stems from, prohibition, right? So when we get back to selling alcohol again, everything gets it's sent, to the states at the state level. They all become like their own country. They all create their own laws, and there's a lot of things you can do in Rhode Island that you can't do in Texas. That being said, that's the legal side of it. The original question is, are the big seven, originally the big six, are they, why are they better? Are they better? And it really does come back to a branding perspective because of prohibition. If you want to take a look at the other states that had prominent whiskey making heritage, Illinois had 10 high for a long time. For the most part, it got compared to Kentucky bourbon, and they lost every single time there was ever a tasting or there was ever a conversation about what is better. Missouri had McCormick for a long time. McCormick actually, got some wedged in there here and there, but they didn't have any support around them. It was just McCormick, right? There was no other Missouri distillers. Pennsylvania was the biggest competitive state to Kentucky and, Tennessee, and that was rye. And the rye market, was hit harder by vodka than bourbon was. And so they all faltered. And now all of those historic Pennsylvania brands like Old Overholt, Michter's, Rittenhouse, those are Kentucky brands now. So what we have here is we have a systematic situation that the states and the way things were created blocked new blood from being built and new distilleries from being built by new blood. And it gave the one region the most brand recognition for 100 years. So that's why we look, and the big seven, those are the big six initially, those are the ones that survived and kept, pounding the pavement and putting stuff out there. And if you've got the New York Yankees are always going to have more fans than the Milwaukee Brewers for several reasons. One, that's where the people are, but also they've got 100 years of history that the Milwaukee Brewers simply do not have. And so to me, that's why Kentucky bourbon, if you try to buy a barrel of Kentucky bourbon at the wholesale side on the tax receipts, you're going to spend more money than, say, if it was, New York or even Indiana. It's just a brand recognition. Doesn't mean it's actually better. I don't know, man. I'm tasting a lot of craft distillers that is kicking a lot of ass right now. Detling in Alabama, man, that whiskey is great. Not good, it's great. I'm a personal fan of Spirits of French Lick. I know not everyone feels the same way, but I love that whiskey. And let's not forget about places like Woodinville that would end up getting acquired or a large investment from the larger companies. So the larger companies see what other people are doing, to include independent bottlers such as yourselves or Smoke Wagon or Penelope, and sometimes they get acquired, sometimes they get investment, but at the end of the day, it's all about brand recognition. And all this stuff we talk about with the way the systems are formed, it all goes back to prohibition, as Ryan mentioned earlier.
We always appreciate the history lesson. That's what we needed you here for, Fred. Keep us honest. So there's a few good.
Eric was going to say something.
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. Kind of to Blake and Brian's part at the beginning, marketing matters so much, and no matter what industry you're in, movies, music, anything, that has such a big impact on any product. And then to Brian's point too, the prices matters so much to so many people. So Elijah Craig was a great example of just a lot of craft distilleries just can't compete with that kind of price. But also usually, I think very generally, big companies distill a lot of trust in people, I guess, pun intended there, distill trust in people. So that's a natural, why people kind of gravitate to the bigger distilleries, just the extra trust there. And they might have had bad experiences with a craft distiller in their past and bought a bottle or two and just it was like, wow, this is just terrible. And this could have been 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But a lot has changed since then. But I think, I wrote an article about this not too long, about a year ago or something, that, if you asked a bunch of bourbon drinkers what they thought was better, who was making better bourbon, the big companies or the little companies, I feel like a lot of them would probably say the bigger companies are making better bourbon, and if that's true or not, but I think that's what a lot of people feel. And I know in my own personal experiences in our own personal groups, a lot of the people that are into bourbon, but not maybe to the level we are, when they are always talking about what's coming out with the big guys. They're not talking about, they're almost completely ignoring the smaller stuff. And even when I'm trying to explain hey, check out this bottle or this bottle, this stuff is really amazing. Yeah, they might entertain it, but there's no real excitement surrounding that, or they're just so focused on what the big guys are coming out with for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's just because it's closer to the big companies produce something that is very close in quality, from release to release, where sometimes smaller companies, there's a little more variation. So I think sometimes there's a hesitance for, of different tasting bourbon versus the bigger stuff. Different isn't bad, it's just different. So I think that's where a lot of hesitation comes from.
Yeah, and I think too, we forget that we'd love to be analytical, dissect, figure out what tastes best, this and that. Most consumers don't want to think. They just want to go into a store. That's why case stacks work so well at the end. That's why displays work so well, because my wife sends me to go in to get a Sauvignon Blanc, and I see, well, there's a 93 pointer on end of a case stack. I have no idea, but I just want to grab it and I want to sound smart when I get home. That's how most consumers think. And, that's why these big companies spend so much money. There's data from when I went to Moonshine University, case stacks and point of sale displays increase sales by anywhere from 10 to 25%. And that's when consumers go in, they just see the marketing, they see this, they want to feel smart, they don't want to think, they don't care. They just want to feel like they have a good price. It's a safe, good product and something they can take home and brag about. That's what they want to do. That's their decision buying habits.
No,
and
very good.
and to be fair, typically when you get it from a Big Seven, you're going to hit all those. That's why they do so well.
Yep, totally. And there's definitely a lot of people that, even to Eric's point, that said, yeah, you got burned by a craft distillery early on, and that basically said, I'm just gonna go with what I know what's comfortable. I know I can get my Wellers and I'll be fine. And that's what a lot of people do. And so they're all chasing green label and red label and whatever it is, and they've got 9 bottles of that at home. There's been a lot of stuff in the chat, because I think I ruffled some feathers talking about government oversight, and some people are going, we don't need more TTB. I think the government's got enough in here. And so I guess I'll kind of flip it the other side, is because the folks at Sharp Top once again said something in here that said, well, what if we actually deregulate a little bit? Like, what if we got rid of your ability that you said you have to go to a distributor?
Let's
Can't you self-distribute? And we start getting rid of these tiers. We start making it a little bit more accessible for people to get it into the hands of the people that actually want it.
again. That's
Help and reduce the barrier to entry.
But that's also a state situation. Like, this is not, I mean, we all live in this world and dream. We all want it, but we can't have it because of the complications created post-prohibition. But the deregulation effort was attempted under Reagan, and the industry fought it tooth and nail. And they didn't deregulate the alcohol industry like they wanted to. The distillers loved having government help on site. They loved having the government have a key to their warehouse, because they were an extra consultant, and you would never ever have mistakes in the batching system. Never ever. Well, I don't say never ever, but they would have caught something like a bourbon and a rye about to be done. Like, it was an extra set of eyes. They loved having that. And there's also testimony in it's in my book, one of my books, of executives before the Senate committee, talking about, like, if you peel away the government oversight on advertising, you'll start have distillers making false claims. Prior to the deregulation, they would make distillers prove that they were the best-selling bourbon. They would make them prove that they were the number one selling whiskey in Kentucky or something. Like, they would have to go before a hearing committee, closed hearing, to prove it. And it's just that's gone. And there's so much misinformation out there, to the point we've had several class action lawsuits. And so to me, like, the more you deregulate, the more that stuff gets opened back up. And I don't know about deregulation any more than it is opening up shipping. Yes, but that's a different conversation than deregulation.
I think there needs to be more regulation on labeling. I think there's a lot of shenanigans, especially with the finished stuff and double oak and all this stuff. There's just so many, like, crazy. There's just so many, like, things people can get away with the current label system. And it's like, okay, we need to tie this up a little bit, because I think some consumers are getting duped. There's a reason why your freaking bourbon tastes like a Cinnabon. There's a reason why it tastes like maple. There's a reason why it tastes like honey. It's like, okay, let's think, that's not bourbon. So anyways, that's,
they're loosening that up, Ryan.
Yeah. And at the end of it all, like, that hurts that coveted 1964 congressional resolution. Eventually there's going to be another country that makes bourbon and labels something bourbon and says, you don't respect your own laws. Why should we? And the distillers in the 80s, the early 80s, they predicted this. Now, it came a little time after, but they predicted this would happen, because they knew the human mindset of when you're out there. And for everyone new getting into the game, they're like, oh, well, why can't we do this? And why can't we do that? And, oh, you're just a hater because you're calling it out, Ryan or Fred. You're just a hater. But nobody Nobody respects that. And I cannot remember the brand, but there's a new brand out that's a single barrel, and they said that it's a blend of 2 barrels and it's a double single barrel. I'm like, what the?
That was Ezra Brooks.
What is that? That's awful.
It's definitely a Lux brand. I remember that.
Yeah, it was a double single barrel. I was like, wait a minute.
That's like, see, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I mean, that should never, ever, ever, ever be on a label. All right.
Yeah, I think there's something we can definitely go to in the label thing, only because people, I think Ryan said it 10 times before, people that have just now getting to bourbon, they don't really know what bourbon tastes like because everybody wants their bourbon to taste like something else that isn't actual bourbon. But as we, a few more things as we kind of stick on this topic before we kind of close it out. So David in the chat said something. They said, we keep mentioning Elijah Craig. He said, is there a craft distillery somewhere that's offering a widely available 12-year-old cask strength bourbon? And he said, big bourbon is better. So I don't think there is anybody that can offer that. And I think that goes back into economies of scale and everything else that we have been talking about, is that to get to the point where you can offer a 12-year-old cask strength bourbon nationwide is a very, very difficult thing to do. And therefore, there's only 7 distilleries that are capable of doing something like that. Is there anything that I'm missing that I like? Because I look at that and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can understand that, like why they have the market share and why they have maybe not the market share, but they definitely have the mind share of the consumer because it's everywhere. You can find it wherever it is that you want to go, and it's good whiskey. There's nothing wrong with it. Plus, they can do it at a very aggressive price point, and they're competing with the other 6 people that are in their category. But beyond that, in the craft whiskey world, no. I think that's where you have to go and search and hunt and go shop on Sealbox.
So I brought up Elijah Craig on purpose because I swear we talked about this on an earlier, like really early episode. And our example was the Heaven Hill 6-year bottled in bond. And this had to have been years and years ago, but we were comparing it to craft whiskeys of the time. What could you get that was 6 years old that, was $11.99? The answer is absolutely nothing. And then the next question is, what compares to it taste wise? And again, it was really, almost absolutely nothing. You had to find a barrel from, that was particularly good, I think, to compete with it. And now we're 5 years down the road, and we're comparing it to the 12 years. So we're moving along. I mean, give craft some time to catch up. There's some who haven't caught up, and I'm not going to throw shade on some, but there's some locally that just are as bad as they were 6 years ago. But a lot really have improved, and give us some time, and there'll be some 12 years out there. Right now, the answer is there is none. I mean, that's the only one you can get that's a national release. It's 12 years cask strength, and pretty much unbeatable in that category.
And I would say that, that's predicated on something 12 years old is going to be better than anything under 12 years old. But I don't think that's the case. So, it's always tell people, hey, if you want a craft whiskey that tastes like Four Roses, just go buy Four Roses because that's out there. So that's where I think, the competition side of things kind of swing to craft producers' favor, just because they can make different products, and everybody's taste is different. You can look at every judging, every competition across the board each year, different stuff wins every year. So it's always so subjective. And that's where if we just said who can get the oldest release at the highest proof for the cheapest price, there's no competition. The big guys take it down every single time. But I guarantee you, everybody on this panel and the chats, they probably don't want to drink Elijah Craig 12-year every single night. That's just not what you're always feeling. But it's good whiskey, and at the end of the day, it gets a little boring.
I mean, I feel that what you just mentioned, it's hard to compete. It truly is, because they have economies of scale, they have time on their side, And as a craft distiller, it is very, very impossible to compete at a price point that they're also competing at. And that also goes back to Brian's point saying, we're a few years ago looking at the 6-year Heaven and Hill bottle and bond for $12. Well, even today, I don't think anybody can even compete in the $12 realm much anymore. I mean, everybody that category is starting to go up as well, and the category is starting to elevate some more. But that's a good thing. I see that as a good thing. If you're listening to this and if you're on the chat, if you're drinking $12 whiskey, maybe it's time to start elevating your game as well.
But to be fair, I think the craft and the new brands have pushed the big seven to be innovative and have better releases. They kind of get in their comfort zones of having just their flagship lineups that are fine, they're okay, but they're like Blake said, they get kind of boring once your palate has advanced and you're like, okay, this, it's funny. You have that, like, what's the most overhyped bottle? And a lot of comments are like, well, those are things I actually like. And I'm like, well, because you have a beginner palate. And that's what I'm thinking. I didn't say that. But as you progress, and I keep bringing it to wine because it's a area that I'm not familiar with, but I just noticed the progression in it. Like Pinot Noir is like the starter for most wine drinkers, but then you get bored with it and you move to like a cab or a Zin, and it's the same thing with bourbon. You're going to start with those big seven because they're solid, they're consistent, but then you're like, I want more. And I think all these craft brands and new brands have really pushed these distilleries to innovate and create exciting new offerings. I mean, never in a million years would I thought, uh, you know, Heaven Hill or would have like, finished stuff or double oak this or that. It was just, it was always like, nope, it's Evan Williams, Elijah Craig, Henry McKenna, and Parker's. That's it, you know. But now they have like, all these line extensions and all these really cool one-offs and whatnot. So, um, I think it's a good thing for the whole category. But people have to support these smaller brands. Otherwise, the big six are just going to keep squashing and squashing, and it's just going to be a monopoly at the end of the day. So it's like, if there's ones you like, support them. It might be a little more expensive, and that's fine, and that does suck. But I don't know, it's not big corporate America, which is kind of cool.
All right, as we kind of wrap it up here, I'll throw it out to the group here one more time. So we've talked about big brands and everything like that, and they don't need any advertising advice from us because they're already paying their PR people tens of millions of dollars a year to actually start and figure this out and get in front of more people. But let's put some things out there for the smaller brands, the people that actually listen to us and pay attention and try to figure out, well, how do I make an impact in the industry? How do I try to find my foothold? What's like a good piece of advice that you would give to a smaller brand? Maybe it's craft or maybe it's just a smaller NDP on how they can start making an impact and how they can start gaining some mind share versus just trying to paint the earth and get their bottle in every single corner stop and throwing a bunch of money and distributor incentives and everything like that.
Yeah, it's an easy one. You start local. I just had a meeting with the craft distiller the other day. They're talking about like how they made a big national push when they launched and got in a lot of attention nationally, but they're not served in every bar in their own city, and they're trying to fix that. And so that's the kind of mentality you need to have. You need to have a very conservative grow out approach because people are traveling all the time and they want to taste something that's local. And if you're not there to win that person in a bar in your hometown, you're not going to win them when they move back to Buffalo or New York City or wherever. I said Buffalo because the Bills are playing right now, but that's you're not going to win them when they go back. But if they like it and they go back, they're going to want it. They may want it again. So start local, grow out, and try to work with distributors that will actually care about you and not forget about you.
And by the way, shout out to Matthew Layton. He kind of said this one too, is that most smaller craft brands make a mistake by trying to go outside of that. And I always want to put an asterisk next to this and says, yes, go local, own your backyard, except if you live in Kentucky.
Well, even in Kentucky, there's micro areas, right? So you've got
Sure, like Louisville.
like Owensboro, like you go Owensboro, right?
Well,
So
what do you mean? Green River owns Owensboro. I don't think there's anybody else going to touch it.
that's just it. But like they were so eager for it. In Western Kentucky, Casey Jones and MB Rowland are, people can't, stock their stuff enough in their bars. Tiny, but still it's important.
Yeah, I think that is, and even if it's not local, I think it's about finding your spot and your niche and your place to connect. I had a conversation with a brand this week where they went to I won't give everything away, but went to a city, and it's like, man, I every store I visit, every bar I go to, they're just thrilled that a brand owner came in, took the time, and he's like, and we got all these placements. And I think you've got to find those spots where they'll embrace your product. They like the story, they like to drink it. And the old saying is liquid to lips. So it's like, how much can you get people trying it and tasting it? And that's easier these days. I think just the online stuff is great, sample kits and all those types of things, Zoom tastings, while have phased out a little bit post COVID. I think the old liquid to lips, getting people talking about it and excited for it, it just it's still the nature of the game. And especially for smaller brands, that's tough because you can only be so many places. But at the end of the day, you got to find your pocket of whether that's your hometown or just somewhere else that buys into what you're selling and dominate those. But yeah, it's just a slow game at times, as I think most of us have seen. And a lot of times we want the solution to a problem to be this huge epiphany, but a lot of times it's just grinding it out of constantly getting people to try it, constantly telling the story, constantly meeting new people and getting them to tell a story, and it just it goes out from there.
So
I'd like to call out Sean's comment in the comment section there. He talked about, I'd support a 200 milliliter bottle. I'd buy 3 times more if bottles were smaller. And it's something us Breaking Bourbon guys have always mentioned over and over again. I wrote an article.
It's all lies. Every time we try to sell 200.
Yeah, I get it. It's tough shelf space. Like stores probably don't want to take smaller amount for the same shelf space. But I think from the bourbon drinker viewpoint, when I interviewed Colin from Kings County, and they're big about doing different size bottles, and it was such a refreshing thing to see from them to be able to buy a smaller amount for a smaller dollar amount and be able to try more things and be a little more adventurous if you didn't have to spend $50 to $100 on every bottle. But it's more than just putting it out there and hoping a store picks it up. There's a lot involved, and it would be a major movement.
I think keep doing what you're seeing a lot of them do, and that's try to flip the script that the major 7 are your McDonald's and your Burger King and your Wendy's, and go for exclusivity and an experience and better quality. And a lot of the craft distilleries are able to do that. Some not so much, and they try to pretend that. But if you can back it up with good bourbon, I mean, that's your key right there.
Very true. Love all that. Good advice for all around. Yes, there's definitely this game is a lot different than anything else that I've ever been involved in. I've realized it is a high touch point, and you have to win people over at the personal level every single time. And it's a slow drip to make people fans of anything. So if there's anything that I've learned through this game, and for anybody that's a smaller distiller that's out there, yes, it is a slow burn and a hard grind to make that happen, as Blake said as well.
Well, it's a fast burn with cash.
It's a fast burn with cash, but and it's definitely going to make the gray hair start coming in a lot faster too,
and the beard.
And the beard. Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Bourbon Community Roundtable. I had another question queued up, but we were already 45 minutes in. I said, let's go ahead. We'll save that one for the next time. I won't give any spoiler alerts because who knows, things could change in the next
It's
couple
what's
weeks.
your favorite antique collection bottle
It-
this year is the question. Didn't want to ruin the surprise, but
I can tell you this
choose your
much.
favorite.
For me, it wasn't George T. Stagg. I didn't like it this year,
Ooh.
and that makes me very disappointed.
For me, it wasn't Weller.
Yeah, it's same.
I mean,
I
I did-
usually mine's Weller. No,
I didn't like Weller.
they only.
I didn't
I got
either.
a sample of the Thomas Andy, so that
Sorry.
was my favorite.
that
and
wasn't
my
your
least
favorite. Yes.
My favorite and my least favorite.
I like the idea from the chat of going to an old school BCR. You know, when we talked about
Ninja
hyper
blenders.
blending. Yeah.
Oh yeah, bring
think
back
we
the
should do
ninja
that.
blending. Yeah,
Bring out the Ninja Blender again, man.
I think we should. We should do a BCR blind tasting again, where we all send out samples.
Oh, I like it.
Ooh, that's a good
Everybody
idea.
take, and then
I'll
yeah,
send you that
holiday
Finger
edi-
Lakes.
holiday edition. That's going to be the one.
Ooh, holiday. Yeah. I mean, we've also got 13 more until we hit number 100. So
Ooh.
We got to
gotta
do
be a big
100 in
one.
person, though.
Are we doing it in
Yeah.
person at the distillery?
sure, whatever you guys
Yeah.
want to do. If you happen to show up that day, perfect. We'll record.
I like the idea of the holiday one. That's soon. I like the blind tasting. I think it would be fun. We should do that for the.
I'm in.
We can get
All
our
right.
intern to coordinate it.
There we go. We'll figure it out. But everyone, this was another fantastic episode of, I was about to say This Week in Bourbon, but the Bourbon Community Roundtable. We record too many damn episodes nowadays. But again, thank you all for tuning in. And let's go ahead and give a sign off for everybody else that's out here. So Blake, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, Blake from Sealbox. So always fun to be here. Good conversation, and I think a lot of good insights. So appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Brian.
Brian with Sipping Corn, Bourbon Justice. Drink what you like, guys.
I like that.
Yeah. And Eric.
I'm Eric from Breaking Bourbon, and thanks for having me on again.
And drink what you
To the
like.
point.
Yeah, and drink what you don't like.
There you go. Drink more craft whiskey, even
Drink
if you
the
don't
Big
like it.
Six.
There you go. Yeah, try something else. Try something new. That's what I'll end with. That. Try something new.
There we go. I love it. This has been another fantastic episode. And make sure if you like the show, don't leave us a review. Tell somebody else about it. Make sure you go and have them subscribe, listen to it, and then follow everybody that's on here from Bourbonaire and Sealbox and Sipping Corn and Breaking Bourbon, of course, and Fred Minnick and Bourbon Pursuit and Pursuit Spirits. If you want to see everything else that Ryan and I are trying to do to break into bourbon full time, go and check us out over there. But with that, everybody, cheers, and we'll see you next time.
Toodles.
Vodka sucks.
Cheers.
Don't try vodka.
There we go.
Yeah, if
Drink
you
what you like.
drink what you like unless it's vodka.
I'm stealing that. That's a good tagline.
I saw in the private
Um,
chat. I might steal that.
Yeah.
Steal
Is
it.
it trademarked? Can we get
Nope.
a
Wait, let me notice.
Yeah, and done. And
And registered.
Fridge, how'd you get on the SEC network? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, no shit,
Yeah.
man. I
Um,
texted you that day. I was like,
I did
"Friends are
too.
blowing
Happy
up."
Veterans Day.
Yeah, I've been on it before, and I became friends with Marty Smith, and they just keep wanting me to come back. I might be going to the SEC championship and doing something too. But
that would be cool.
yeah,
Won't be with
Which
Florida. Or
we went
Kentucky.
over. Our
Yeah.
daughter spent the night at a friend's house, and so we went over there for like brunch and kind of hanging out and watching just the pregame stuff and game day. And my buddy goes, "Oh man, let me try to rewind it. They had a guy on here doing a bourbon tasting on the SEC network," and starts rewinding it back. And I'm scrolling through Instagram. I'm like, "Don't rewind it. We're not. It's Fred." He's like, "No, you got to see it. You got to."
Blake's like yawn.
Yeah, I've seen that guy before.
Gets me again.
Been there,
Can't
done
escape him on
that.
Saturdays.
it was
in my home.
cold. It was cold up there.
You mean once Alabama started scoring, or during?
No,
Kentucky's
just-
offense.
That no,
Yeah,
that
too.
It was
that
pretty
whole
bad.
setup there was so cold. But
I
yeah,
can't
it
make a
was.
joke. Start coughing.
They were
It did
they were
look
bad. And you just can't bet against Alabama. There's just
No,
That
don't do it.
line was so weird. I was like, how's it only 11? I was like, this has to be a trap or something. Like,
yeah.
but that was the easiest bet ever.
they
Yeah.
just-
I mean, they were covering in first 7 minutes.
It's kind of like the
it was awful.
49ers getting 2.5 and everybody was upset in Jacksonville, and then they come win by 30 something.
Oh, dude, I picked the
Similar to my
Jags.
Sunday.
So, all right, what do you think of this idea? So, for this week in bourbon, I want to do bourbon and bets, where Kenny and I we do he picks a college game
you do
against the
that?
spreads,
Yeah.
and I pick, and then we pick an NFL game against the spread, and we do it every. We post it, talk about it, get people's feedback. What do you think?
I like it. People,
I mean,
you get a whole new crowd on that.
if you can get away with it, can you talk about alcohol and gambling in the same sentence online? Is that allowed?
We'll ask for forgiveness. Fred will know the laws.
I don't know the
Brian.
laws on that one,
Yeah.
but I know that you
Sponsored
just,
by FanDuel.com.
Well, I mean, Barstool has like High Noon sponsoring everything, and they're doing.
yeah. I had
That's
DraftKings used to sponsor my podcast, so I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, I guess it's all in the vices. So if you're not like, hey, go get drunk and spend all your money, you just be
I'll just do the
responsible.
disclaimer that says gives the
Yeah.
1-800 number for responsible gaming.
Selfishly,
Yeah.
I'm like 6-13 on the year in my friends parlay group, and so I need like help. I can't even pick my nose this year. It's like,
He's been sitting on that joke for a little while.
I know.
He's
few
been
weeks.
When can I
working
say
that
it? When
one.
can I say it? When can I say it?
What we didn't tell you is we're actually going live from the Jaguars game on Sunday. So
sweet.
I'm bringing the mic, and it's just going to be me and Ryan announcing the game over the Pursuit Instagram. So
Oh yeah,
just be ready for that one. It's going to be a fun one.
with kids crawling over us.
So y'all sneaking in booze or something to make this entertaining or what?
We're in the club level.
Oh, of course you are.
Man, of course you are. That's
you
right.
don't, you don't fuck with GA anymore, do you?
Allegedly,
It's,
we're in the club level.
Yeah,
You better wait
yeah,
till you get
hey,
there.
There's 2 extra seats as of now. So if anybody wants to make that last minute trip to Jacksonville, you've got like an hour and a half before my wife gives them to somebody else. So
We'll see if when my wife has to edit this video tomorrow, if she sees this part and she's like, I want to go to Jacksonville. Like,
Jacksonville,
let's
sounds
make it
fun.
happen.
Good barbecue there.
This will be my first time. in Jacksonville.
There is good barbecue there. 7-2-1 in NFL picks of the week.
Wow.
Ooh, Scotty and pizza.
Bring
Okay.
him on the show.
All right.
Bring him
Need your
on
pick.
the show.
Nah, just text us your picks.
Kidding. Such a downer.
It's true. Does Burn Pursuit have a hotline at this point where it's like text the hotline? We'll
We probably could. We get ourselves like a Twilio number that people can text.
Chat line.
Yeah, why not? Just a hotline for whatever.
1-900 number.
Mac
Mm.
Jones.
You gotta think of a good like 7
That still exists.
letter sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, those things are expensive. To get, because we've tried to, for the Sealbox text, it just comes from like an 833 number, but they're like, you could get a 7-number thing and it could just spell Sealbox and the name would be whatever the digits are. They're like, yeah, it's only like $1,500 a month to have that dedicated. I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh.
Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, you're not a
it's not
ambulance chaser lawyer where you get to like just dial the 8s.
text help to 411 pain.
Pain.
We're not there yet. On another note, has anybody tried this yet?
Never. Oh, the Wilderness Trail.
Which is
from
Wilderness Trail.
England.
What is it? I don't even know what that is.
Live.
I can.
Why
Uh,
can I
Never
say it
Say
live?
Die.
They had it in their
I mean, you can
first,
say whatever you want.
they had it in their first press release. They said they got it from Wilderness Trail.
I'm
All
just
right,
telling
never
you.
mind. It's wild turkey.
Sorry, it's Wild Turkey. It's Campari. It's whatever, but it's another
WT.
WT.
It's
It's
actually
IJW.
really good. IJW. It is releasing this week, or no, next week. But I've been drinking it. It's actually really good. It's just proof Wilderness Trail makes incredibly good bourbon, even though they like don't act like they source for anybody now. It's really good stuff.
I think that's our problem is we know too much. So you said that and we're just like, oh yeah, it's this and this and this. Where 99% of the consumer base be like, tell me more.
Oh, there's a new distillery out there.
Yeah, there's
There's one
another
in
distillery.
England.
It's in
They have
England.
Kentucky
It's in-
bourbon in England.
Yeah, they're making bourbon in England now. You didn't know
Kentucky style bourbon.
that? And it has a horse on it. Do you know that?
I'll buy it.
Absolutely. It's named after the third place winner of a Kentucky Derby back in 1971.
But I'm a sucker for a story, and
Exactly.
the horse. What is it? The horse was born in Kentucky and went and won some races over in England. So they did the same thing with the barrels.
Horses do that every
weird.
year.
Horses travel
Yeah, I
a
was
shit
like,
ton.
They go between here and Ireland and Abu Dhabi every single year in race.
The horse sprained
Do
his
they
ankle.
fly those
and
horses, or
said,
is
never
that
say
like
die,
Yeah,
and
they
they
fly
ran.
it.
they fly them, or they
Yeah,
put them?
no, they fly 'em.
the Jefferson's barrels. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Maybe.
a horse manure Jefferson barrel.
Just one hoof in each barrel. In each barrel.
Manure sea aged.
Yeah, I've thought about doing the sauna aged video. Getting a barrel in a sauna wrapped in a towel.
Well, that's
You
definitely
could do
coming when
really
you're
good
in
ads. You
Jacksonville,
sitting
too.
next to it in a towel, next to the barrel, wrapped in a towel, having a conversation.
We should
That's
do one jiu-jitsu aged with Fred sweating on the mat. Chokehold.
Just choke out a barrel.
That would be gross.
Be like,
Although,
"Dude,
Fred,
I'll
do
sell.
you
It
get
would
into
sell.
like
You're missing on an opportunity.
Yeah.
Literally, like
There's
all
there's
the
a
rules,
jujitsu play there for
Throw the
sure.
rules out the window. It doesn't matter anymore.
Well, you know, the sweat could bring a brininess that they
like the
haven't.
full Nelson that Fred Minnick
it's
just put
like
on you.
it's like the Isla, or no, what's the
Isla.
the
Yeah,
space sides of bourbon. Yeah.
it'd be like Laphroaig.
The Fred
That's ac-
Sweat batch.
It's actually sweat.
We're gonna call it LaFred's. And
LaFred's.
it's gonna it's gonna be the sweaty batch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. All right. I'm getting
Lots of
out of here.
opportunities, guys. Make money.
All right.
Lots of great ideas at the end. I think solid 5 minutes of brainstorming stuff that will never happen. And
I feel like we should
Close
close
it
it
out
out
on
with Eric
that.
and a saxophone.
Yeah. Play us the
play us
outro. Go get it.
That-
Play us the outro.
that should actually be the outro. It's just like Eric going
You do the Homer Simpson
after
saxophone.
after every one.
It's just not even Eric. We realize the entire Breaking Bourbon team
Yeah, we could all
Can
get
play
out
it,
and be.
every single time.
That needs to be the
Trio.
that needs to be on the whatever episode is. What does it say? 200 or what
The
is it?
10th
We're kind
anniversary
of close
or
on
something.
100.
100. I think
200 would be
that
lit.
those three need to do the saxophone intro. Just in
That'd
three.
be cool.
I like it. Yep.
I like it too.
Mm.
All right,
Dust
well
it
let's
off. Get new reads.
All
Get
right.
'em going.
let's go ahead.
y'all.
We'll end
Does
the
have to
stream.
upload?
Stay here. I'm gonna end the stream, but
He's gonna-
thank you everybody that's
All right.
joining the chat. It's been real. Hope you enjoyed this show. It will also be live on Thursday, plus everything else that we are doing. Oh, by the way, we didn't announce it yet, but we're actually going to start opening up our distillery for tours here relatively soon. So make sure you pay attention to pursuitspirits.com, and you too can come and fill your own bottle of whiskey. So that'll be coming here in the next few weeks, but looking forward to talking to y'all soon. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Doodles.